Social action has three dimensions: the personal, the charitable, and the political, or how we live, how we give, and how we want others to live and give. Social action is larger than we think. We notice it most at protests or at the soup kitchen or when we write letters to the editor. But it is more than the occasional good deed. To be effective, social action must be grounded in spirituality. It must be an expression of the human spirit within us all. It must be congruent with our purpose in life. It requires self-examination. What is the highest good? And how do I live my life accordingly? Unitarian Universalists have many definitions of the highest good. Some call it God, some call it reason, some call it love, and some call it nature. How we perceive the highest good will determine how we act. If the ultimate is hostile, we will act with hostility. If God is hostile, we will renounce personal sin and condemn the sinner. We must show that we are as willing as God to punish those sinners. If reason is hostile, we submit ourselves to a world of cold, hard facts. We ignore the feelings of others until they conform to reality. If love is hostile, it demands self-sacrifice. A woman remains devoted to a man who beats her. A soldier is sacrificed for love of country. If nature is hostile, we must control it. We tame wild rivers so people can live near them. We pave over rough paths so we can drive smoothly. We dig and suck out energy so our homes can be protected from the cold and from the heat. Undesirable species such as bugs and other predators like ourselves must be exterminated so we can harvest the plants and animals that we want to eat. If ultimate reality is benevolent, we will act with kindness. If God loves all people, so shall we, bringing hope and healing and harmony to a troubled world. If reason is kind, it recognizes that people are moved by the intangible. Emotion, beauty, and myth have a power that must be reckoned with. If love is kind, we seek to share it. We love our neighbors as we love ourselves, loving ourselves so that we have the strength to love others. If nature is kind, we try to live in harmony with it. We protect it so it can continue to provide. Perhaps we cannot know whether ultimate reality is hostile or benevolent. Perhaps it is neither, perhaps it is both. Yet, how we act is important. It may even shape ultimate reality. Gandhi said, "You must be the change you want to see in the world." This phrase connects the personal, the charitable, and the political. We may make proclamations about what we believe, but how we act really displays our beliefs. What we do is what we believe. This is true across all issues. All of us are socially active on all issues. Even when we're ignoring an issue, it's because we're choosing to focus on something else that we determine is a higher purpose. We must find something to do with our lives. but we also need to forgive ourselves for not being able to dedicate ourselves to everything. That's the beauty of living in community, because there is no shortage of good causes out there. And I know from my email that there's more than I can do. But the beauty of living in community is that we can make connections to one another, supporting each other in their causes, and sometimes merely saying thank you for what you are doing will give someone in this room strength to go on. And maybe all you can give to a particular cause, but it is important. Also, being in community is a recognition of our limitations. No one can do it alone. Sharing our concerns may result in help for our cause. But whatever cause moves us to action, we must remember the three dimensions: the personal, the charitable, and the political. When we are thinking about the environment, think about the personal. How many resources do you use? Do you recycle? Where does our food come from? This fellowship houses the Triad Buyers Club, a natural food co-op that seeks to live in harmony with nature. This could also take you from the personal to the charitable, because if you ever visit here on one of the Thursdays that the co-op is here, you see people giving their time and their energy. This place gets transformed into an open-air market bazaar, and then by 6 o'clock, all the chairs are back where they belong. That energy builds community. They give Forsyth County an affordable natural food option. Now, anyone who buys organic bread notice it costs more. When one begins to ask why, one can then be moved to the political. Factory farming produces mass quantities of calories, low cost, low calorie, or low quality food. But it has a negative impact on the environment. Large farms have made it difficult for the family farm to survive. If we want to have an impact on how our food is grown, maybe we'll write our congressman and try to influence farm policy. And this congregation has also acted in a charitable dimension regarding the environment. Often groups have donated time to clean up parks and waterways and roadways. Poverty has a personal dimension. I've seen a bumper sticker that says, "Fight poverty, get a job." Though I think that might be mean-spirited. But there is a grain of truth in it, in that each of us, when we work at finding worthwhile thing to do to contribute to society and get paid for it, it lifts us out of poverty. And once we start earning money, we need to control our spending and our time. Whether or not we have money, we can contribute time to fight poverty. Some of our congregation work for Habitat for Humanity, some work with crisis control, which helps people with food, shelter, and prescriptions. And you have a little shopping list for shelter, crisis control that's in our order of service monthly. Some work with Second Harvest to support food banks. I know our youth have worked at soup kitchens. And we can contribute to anti-poverty with money. Some contribute to the minister's discretionary fund, so that when someone comes to me privately, I have a source of money to help them out with the light bill or something that's coming up in an emergency in their family situation. But we all know that jobs are not easy to find or always well-paying. Then it is time to get political. Last year, members of Change accompanied Mayor Joines to Raleigh. And the mayor cites the political action of change with helping to bring the Dell jobs to Winston-Salem. Then there's the issue of health care. Of course, that has a personal aspect to it. The more we eat and exercise and how we do that will indicate how much of a burden will be on the healthcare system. But there's also a charitable aspect to healthcare. I know that many in this congregation make provisions for those patients who are unable to pay. Some of our members work down at the downtown healthcare center. And that brings us to some of the political aspects of healthcare. Locally, the county wanted to cut funding to the downtown healthcare center. At least 4 UUs joined 200 people from Change at a county commissioners meeting, which was particularly effective since the room held about 100. And 2 of our members had their picture in the paper as they sat with the overflow crowd in the hallway. This multi-faith, multicultural display of concern may have caused the commissioners to restore at least $1 million of the 1.5 that was requested when they were planning to cut. In a society that advertises drugs for every situation in life, there are some drugs that are criminalized. No one has gone blind from marijuana. Yet its sale is prohibited. Much of drug policy is enforced primarily against minorities and is a civil rights issue, as is the death penalty. On a personal level, we're all pretty sure that we shouldn't kill other people, but it becomes political when we allow the state to kill for us. And peace. Peace is a personal issue. How do we treat our families? How do we treat those who we come in contact with? And I know individuals in this congregation who have made the personal, political, writing letters, marching, but there is no peace group that meets in our fellowship to reintegrate the political action with the personal about what does it mean to live peacefully every day. Because only by living peacefully every day and being proactive can we prevent having to be so reactive and taking to the streets. Civil rights is a big issue, and in a couple of weeks I'll be discussing it more. But today, think of your personal relationships to people who are classified as different from you. And how do you interact? Again, I bring up change. It's an acronym meaning communities helping all neighbors gain empowerment. And I really think this organization is an incredible opportunity for Unitarian Universalists. We argue for freedom of belief. We have no doctrine that cautions us or prohibits us from fraternizing with those who believe differently. This is an organization that encourages us to transcend our differences and focus on our common human needs. Here's the pitch. In your orders of service, there's an envelope, and some of you can do charitable social action. Our congregation was active in forming this organization, and during the first few years, it survived on grants from foundations. But now's the time for member organizations to support it. You may mail the envelope directly to them, put to change, UU in the memo line, or save yourself a stamp and give it to Lynn Mitchell after the service. There's going to be a lot of organizations outside our door. You saw them as you came in. There's going to be the Shepherd Center. Susan Ott works with them, helping provide for senior citizens in this community. Jim will have a table on drug policy. Carol Aycock will be working with the Triad Environmental Action Group. And there's change. And also, Americans United for separation of church and state. And this issue, I think, is becoming so critical in our nation these days as people try to establish a theocracy. And though some of our founders may have been Christian, they were specific about leaving it out of the Constitution. But there is a movement afoot to restore us to a Christian nation that we never really were. And in this town, there's a chapter of Americans United for Church and State, and it started on a social action Sunday about 2 years ago when we had a guest speaker here. And now it is a thing that doesn't meet at this church, but meets in the community. And only about half of its members are UUs. So there's a group in this community that realizes you can be religious without having to legislate your religion. There are so many ways to serve, and I've only touched on some of the issues. Something will move your heart to act. Let us now think of what we do in a personal way, what things we give to, and what things we do in a political way. Let us take time to discern our purpose in life and then live it. And at this time, those of you who have a political bent, we do our personal living and our personal giving, but standing up during response time is a political act, letting people learn about something that moves you. So at this time, I just open it to anybody who wants to speak about something that's important to them. David.
Charlie, I'd like to remind everyone that there are people here who care for individuals who do not care for themselves. So at a time when we think about social action, we think about going outside our families or going outside ourselves, to do something that's demonstrative, that's real obvious. Many of us care for someone on a day-to-day basis and put our own beliefs into action that way.
To raise a family, to care for an aged parent. That, I think Tip O'Neill said all politics is local, and I think all politics ends up being personal, because that's what often leads us to do what we need to do.
I think that we're faced every day with an opportunity to take some sort of social action on many more topics than what have been mentioned here this morning. And I think we have to think about those and consider them and act as we feel appropriate.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just adding something to the conversation you hear at work.
Rachel Naomi Remen says something very beautiful, which inspires me, which is we don't serve life because it's broken, we serve life because it's holy. And I think that when that shift in attitude, that life is precious and beloved, and that's why you serve, doesn't make you at war with the world. When you serve it because it's broken, you see yourself as central. I think it's a very helpful distinction.
I just want to say thank you for pointing out that it's okay to just focus your energy on one area, because there are other people around you that are talks about UUism and the environment and how we can live our 7 principles. So stop by, and I'm soliciting your comments about what you think that we as the UU, given our 7th principle, can do for the community on Earth Day every year.
You know, this is sort of in a different category, but we have a member here, as in Dan Bessie, who really has given his time and his energy trying to help us in this city to think in a good, rational, healthy way. So he's running for the city council. He's happening.
I think at this point, we probably should worry about our 501c3. We can express gratitude, but
Well, and, I think Philip Park Avenue Street might be a nice time to say thank you.
This is not a big list. I think as we look at the next couple of years and think about how we're going to treat this building and all that stuff, that we as a congregation really need to realize it's one of the biggest assets that we can offer to the community, to host meetings and things like that.
because we often make a false dichotomy between building and social action, but this building in this past year has hosted a food co-op, hosts an NA group, hosts a Buddhist group, expanding freedom of religion in this congregation. We host rehearsals for the vagina monologues. There's a lot of social action we can do, the symphony chorale, supporting the arts. Just by having a place that is welcoming is part of our action of social action.
I'm not a big one for writing letters to the editor. I get all steamed up. But I don't like to sit. So I really appreciate many letters from members of this congregation and friends of this congregation who take on, that write, hey, wait a minute, look at this. I love reading the letters this community sends to me.
And Patty.
I just want to give a plug to the animals. Just remind everybody that they are interconnected. And I was so glad to see the RE donate toys and goods to the animal shelter for everybody that rescues. Pardon me?
Rescue.
For everybody that rescues animals rather than buys. Thank you very much. And just keep that in mind because we all are interconnected.
Thank you. Let us now rise as we are able and join in singing hymn number 121, We'll Build a Land.